In a sense, it's a rebirth of a country because how we could have afforded to do what we did. We help everybody, and they don't help us. I really, the term I like best probably is the liberation of America. It's the liberation of this country because it's incredible. Look, we have 36 trillion in debt for a reason, and that accumulates over a long period of time. So I think what you're going to be seeing over the next couple of days will be very inspiring to a lot of people. They're reciprocal. So whatever they charge us, we charge them, but we're being nicer than they were. We have a lot of countries, friend and foe. I always say friend and foe, but the friend in many cases is worse than the foe. They took advantage of us, and we are going to be very nice by comparison to what they were. The numbers will be lower than what they've been charging us, and in some cases maybe substantially lower, but we sort of have a world obligation perhaps.
Economic reconstructuring and reconfiguring of the global order. No more getting ripped off by China. No more having our jobs outsourced. The tariffs are the way through. People have to understand, tariffs are a tool to balance trade. That's what it's about. So when you hear, and by the way, Rich, I love this. You know, there's so many Republicans. You can find out very quickly who the Republicans are that are in the pocket of Wall Street and who the pockets are that are, who are in the pocket of like the Chamber of Commerce, the Club for Growth, all this stuff, because they're the ones who, tariffs are a tax, tariffs are a tax, tariffs are a tax. They'll never sit down and point out that the way tariffs work is it's a tax on the foreign companies that are importing cheap goods into our country. And I will give President Trump credit for this because he's been very consistent and on message by saying, if you want to avoid the tariffs, make your products here in the United States. So we did, when we did the interview with Secretary Besson, we called it Make Made in America Great Again. Make Made in America Great Again. That's what we're trying to get back. We're trying to get back to Made in America. And I get it. I get it. This is going to hurt. And who's this going to hurt? The big box stores, the Walmarts. It's going to hurt Amazon. Oh, I'm so sorry, Jeff Bezos. It's going to do all that. But here's the dirty little secret. Why do Amazon and Walmart and all these other companies run around and work so well? Because everybody likes shopping there. Because it's cheaper. Because as it turns out, people do base their decisions on economics, and certainly people do that in states and in areas that are more working class. And so if President Trump wants to continue to win over this population and continues to win over this, look, I get, by the way, I think it's smart to do this as far away from I know we have special elections today, but as far away from the midterms as possible, because hopefully things will have readjusted between now and then. But Rich, walk me through some of this, because there is going to be pain, and it's not just the polling, but there is going to be, there's going to be prices that go up because, as it turns out, we have foreign goods that have completely infiltrated our country for such a long time. And I think I like that idea. Infiltration, invasion, national security. These are all things that we can use to understand that, right? It's like, if it's not made in America, that means it's made somewhere else. That means there's something wrong with it.
Yeah, and that used to be the attitude that we had. But by the way, all these people, the tariffs attacks, they're all the same people who argue about tax avoidance behavior, right? So they don't see any plausible the potential for tariff avoidance behavior. Of course, people are going to start to try to avoid them if they're in place for as long as they are. And they're all also the same people who argued in the first Trump administration when he did engage in the use of tariffs on a much more limited basis, granted it was, that there would be a spike in the CPI because of automobiles, right? Do you remember that? Of course, that never happened. And the CPI was basically flat the entire time. So I've seen people use Honda and other automobile companies as an example when the truth is some of the parts go back and forth over the border, Jack. But for the most part, stuff that we are buying here, they could change some of their operations up to avoid those tariffs. And you'd look at 60 or 70% that's already being manufactured here anyway. So, I just think, again, that the bottom line is there is of course, some danger, because if it's not explained to people properly, they won't understand what's happening. And all they know is that Trump was elected to stop that. That being said, we've pulled this a lot. And when you tell people or ask people whether or not they support tariffs as a use, for trade negotiations, right? to restructure the economy for national security, they definitely demonstrate the ability to deal with the pain on the short term, of course, not long, not very long, but on the short term in order to achieve the outcome that they want. And if you were to give people the option between keeping the status quo and this, a short-term change, short-term pain that ends with long-term gain, they'll pick that. They will. It's just that, again, the messaging is so critical and so important moving forward, explaining to people, because the prices will go up on some stuff. You know it, and I know it, right? The price of eggs, that's all very well and good, and I understand that's the talking point, but you can't spend your time talking about eggs, right? If the real issue is with the time they go to purchase their next vehicle or whatever it may be, right? So they have to make sure that they're talking about relevant stuff here. And I keep going back to that because obviously what I'm saying is that I don't think they're doing a good enough job doing that right now. And I also wouldn't undersell the American public. So part of that is on the White House to make that message clear. The American public will stay with you if they understand you have a clear vision for the future. That's what I'm trying to say here.
Look, the clear vision for the future, and I think that really sets the stage, right? The
It
clear
does.
vision for the future, it's made in America. Made in America is coming back. Imagine your town not being surrounded
Yes.
by
Yeah.
migrants and actually having jobs that, by the way, every time I see one of the jobs that you can go to that are good and a place that you'll want to work at for 20 years, for 30 years, not just some place that pays the bills, but a place that'll actually take care of you. You know, I talked to both my parents had jobs like that. A lot of people in that generation had jobs like that. And those jobs, that whole world doesn't exist anymore, where a company will take care of you and send you back to school and do all this stuff. Maybe the military. I think it's like the only organization that's still like that in America. But we were talking to Kenny Cody here the other day, the new opinion editor over at Human Events, and he said, you talk to a lot of people and they talk about the greatest generation. They so much awe and all the movies are about it. He goes, well, you know what President Trump is trying to do? He's trying to make the next greatest generation. I love that. I thought that was so good. The next great generation. We're going to have that coming up. The Zoomers could be the next greatest generation, which, by the way, when you say that to a Zoomer, it's so jarring because they're one of the most cynical generations that has ever existed. And I think that's one of the reasons, actually, that you saw so many Zoomers come on board to support President Trump, because they're so upset with the way things are in this country. They really want actual change, not just like some fake phony Barack Obama promises. They want someone who goes against the grain, and that's Donald Trump. But at the same time, that means they want to actually see that. But I don't know that they've internalized that things actually can get better. They really and actually can get better. So Rich, when you look out at those populations, because I see it, and you know what? The flip side of that cynicism is the Luigis. It's the cult of Luigi. It's the populist left. It's them going so in the opposite direction, saying, oh, you know what? I don't like the system, so let's burn it all down. The Tesla terrorists, the dealerships, all the rest of it like that. So, Rich, how do you get this across? Let's say you're someone who is in college now, is just coming online in the jobs market, and say, whoa, what's going on? All these prices are going up. What do I do?
Well, I just point out that Zoomer generation, so many of, forget about how much more an automobile is going to cost. Too many of them couldn't afford one right now. Right.
Yes.
So this
Right.
is what people like. This is what the Cato and the American enterprise class are all missing. They can't afford one right now. So you think they're going to care much about a tariff levied on a car they can't afford? I mean, they want a different system that pays them enough where they're honest. They go to work, put in a certain amount of time every day that is expected of every normal human being, and they can come home and take care of themselves. That when they get out of that, 4-year college, that they're going to be able to do something with that degree, or if they don't, Jack, and they try to get into a trade again, or so. We live in a world like that. I mean, Vogue has completely disappeared from this world, right? So not everyone is even in that generation. Not everybody is even, I don't want to say college material, but that's not their path. That's not their destination in life. There's something else that they can do. Their problem isn't their innovation or their work ethic. The problem is the opportunity that's out there. It's not there for everyone. So again, even if they were to Even if they were to see a price on a car, what does it matter if you can't afford that car? I really think people need to understand that, and that's really the message they have to move. They have to going forward and trying to rebuild a society to the point where everybody has access to things that right now so few do. It's that simple.